Hello guys, welcome to CoderCrab. So today we'll see the CRUD operation using JPA and MySQL. Okay. So if you see my last video, if you've seen it, so what you will get is how we will deploy a simple get API which I had written in my main function. Above my main method in the main class, which I deployed to the AWS EC2 instance with S3 storage. Okay. So now it was working fine. Now, what if we want to try to create some REST APIs endpoints for our CRUD operation? And here I'll be using JPA and MySQL. Okay. So, what steps should we follow? The first thing is, these are the 13 steps we need to follow. First is create a module, controller, repository, and service package. Okay. Then define our database connection. So prerequisite is you should be having a database from where you want to read and where you want to write your data, right? So we'll be having a database connection properties. Those things we will be saving to some location. Okay. Then some additional JPA properties we will save. We'll see all these steps. Okay. Next, we'll be creating a model for columns, and we'll be using Lombok, one of the very good plugin of Spring Boot, which will be helping us in setting up the getters and setters. Next, create repository and implement the JPA repository. So now we will be creating a repository and we will be pulling all the JPA related by default, which functions are defined already. It is already there. We can utilize it, right? So those things we will be implementing. Okay, we'll be implementing in our interface. Then service operations. All operations which are there in the repository will be importing and utilizing in our services. Okay, so there we can have our business logic. We can change our business logic according to those business logic. We'll be calling these functions, those things. So we'll be doing it. Next, we'll be exposing the endpoints. So the endpoints would be there for accessing it from the tools like Postman or a UI, whatever you want to do from a mobile app or anything. Okay, so those would be available over HTTP. People can call it. Next, test the application using Postman similar tool. Yes, that's the same thing. Now let's build the application. We'll create a new jar. We'll remove the old jar from EC2 and upload the new jar to S3 and again download it to EC2. And from in EC2 we'll be running our application. Okay, and we'll start the Tomcat server via Putty SSH client. Then the Tomcat server would be running and we would be ready to test it. So okay, so let's go. So I'll not be disturbing our existing 8080. I'll be rather creating a 9191 port. Then that would be helping us. Okay, sure. That's all for this thing. So before we go further, so let me just do a simple explanation, like how would we, how it would, how we would do it. Okay. Okay. So the first thing first, what we will have initially is a database, right? So let's say here there is a database, and this database is there, which is having its URL or host name and your username and password. Okay, so these things are there, so you know how to connect to this one. So now we have either you can have a property file, application.properties, or a YAML file. Okay, so these things goes here. Okay, these things would go to either YAML or your property file, application.property file or application.YAML files, right? Next, we will be creating a model, or people can call it entity also, right? So here in this model, we will be defining all the columns of a table. So basically, we will be creating the table and we will be defining the columns, right? Okay, so we'll have some detailed properties here. I'll be showing it when I'll be creating it. So those properties we'll be defining here. We'll be using property file, let's say, and here we'll be defining it. So once we'll create the table, we will define the table here. Then once you run the program, it will create a table here inside the table. Okay. So next, what we will do is we got this. We will have a Lombok dependency. And this Lombok dependency will help us setting the getters and setters. If you don't want to use it, you can put your own getters and setters, no issues in it. Okay. Just to avoid some boilerplate code, ports, we are using Lombok. Clear? Next thing is we'll be creating a repository. Okay. So this repository would be doing nothing, but it will be implementing the JPA repository, which is having all the predefined functions for CRUDs. Okay. So these things we'll have this. We'll create the repository. Next, we'll creating a service. So in this service, we'll be importing this repository as well as this model. Okay, and in here we would be creating our business logics for each particular function. Let's say you are getting, so you need to read from database, that thing you need to insert, you will create an insert, post, you will be updating, you will create a put. So basically all these functions we will be creating. Okay, so once you are done with this, then we will create a controller. So this controller is something which will be exposed to the end user as a endpoint. So the end user would be calling this controller. Here we will be creating routes, and inside that we will be defining it is a post, it is a get, we will be doing the mapping, and from here you will be importing this service here and we will be calling its functions from here. Okay. So particularly, so how it is happening? So this guy is exposed to the outside world, and this is it is calling the services. Services in contrary is calling using the model to get its data, and with the data it is calling the repository to use the JPA predefined functions. So this is all for a CRUD operation using Spring Boot. This is how we should design. So let's see in action all these things. Okay, the first step first, let's create 4 packages. Okay, so here I'll just create 4 packages. Package first is the model. Okay, then next package is services, service. Then next is your repository, and last one is your controller. Okay, so 4 packages we have created. So what are the 4 packages? Model, repository, service, and control. Okay. Next. Now let's put the application property. Okay, so let's comment this out. Not needed when there is no URL. That's why it was giving some error. Okay, so it is not required. So next is we'll put our properties. Okay, so what properties we'll be putting? We'll be putting our database properties, right? So the first property that we are going to put is Spring data source. So let's write Spring dot data source dot URL. This is the first property, right? Sorry, we can first give driver class, then we can give URL. Okay. So what is the driver class? So here for MySQL, I'm using com.mysql cj, this one. Okay. Next, we'll be putting the URL, the database URL. So dot data source dot URL. Okay. So what is the URL? So I have kept the database here. I had connected here. I'll just see it. So this is our host name, right? So this is our host name. So we'll take this one first, and before this is JPA will be using the JDBC as well in code band, right? So what we'll do, JDBC, like we write this, sorry, JDBC, then colon MySQL. Then we'll be writing this, and this is our host name, right? Slash database name. So what is our database name? This is our database, right? So let's put it here. Okay, done. Okay, so next, this is URL part is done. Let's put spring dot data source dot username. Okay, so what is the username we have? Let's go and check there. This is the username. Okay, now spring dot data source dot password. Okay, so what password we have? Test underscore 2022. Okay, so next is, okay, so these are the property, data source property which are required for data connectivity. Next is our JPA properties. Okay, so first property is spring dot JPA dot show SQL. So show SQL will show you the query that is being fired. Okay, it is forming the query and firing it. Right? That query it will show you in your console. Right, so let's put it true. Next is DDL operations, right? So spring dot JPA dot generate hibernate DDL auto update. Okay, so here you will put update. That means whenever you will be putting your query, your table columns and all those things, those are not there, or you are changing it, or you are creating new table, those things will be automatically operated in the database itself. So we'll see that. Okay, so we'll be putting the column names and table names, so it will be created in the database. So basically, if you'll see now, there is no table here, right? The database is having only hibernate sequence, one table which I had used earlier. It would not be also there for normal things, but here there is no other table, right? So you will create, it will create the table which you will define here. Okay, so next is dialect. So it is also very important, because as Spring Hibernate is a technology means free, right? Like you don't have to, like MySQL, you don't have to write, right? So you don't have to use specific to that, specific to any database and all those things, right? So it generally takes it and connects to the different dialects, right? So that's why you need to use dialect, so that it will know, okay, you are writing MySQL, so it will convert your SQL queries according to MySQL, according to its syntaxes, right? So let's see, spring dot jpa dot properties, then dot hibernate dot dialect. Okay, equal to, this may not give you a prompt, but you can just write it, type it, or dot hibernate dot dialect dot MySQL. Okay, MySQL file dialect. Okay, if there have been spelling mistake or something, it will not create the table. Okay, that we will have to check. Okay, so let's see. Server, now I'll be changing the port. The old port I'll not be using. Server.port. I'm giving 9191. Okay, any port I'll just give 91. Yeah, so let's see. Okay, so we are done with this. The database is okay. So now let's go. Okay, so okay, so this is fine. Okay. So now our table, everything is okay. So let's go to the model. Okay, so inside model, let's create a new class. So what class we will be creating? We will be creating a very let's say we are creating for today, let's say address, for addresses, right? the different contact address, right? Mailing address. Let's say you are creating a model for mailing address. So we'll be creating a service called mailing or only simply address. Okay. So this is a address class. Let's put it. So here in this address.java, what I will do is we'll define our properties. So first thing is, okay, so before we go inside that, we'll utilize some of the annotations. The first annotation which is required is at the rate of data. The rate of data is basically coming from the Lombok. So what it does, it basically creates setters and getters for you. Okay, so let's see it. In first, let's say I'm creating a simple ID. Let's say, okay, so I'll be creating a table for that. So what I'll use at the rate of table. Okay, now table. Let's say name. I want to give a name as address table. Okay, simple. I've given this address name as a table. So let's import it if it is not coming. Okay, so okay, so now we got the table. Now in this table, the first column I'll be taking is private. Let's say integer your address ID. Okay, so let's say add ID. Okay, so this is the column I have taken. Now this address ID is, if you are not giving anything, right? If you're not giving above it any column name or anything, it will take this address ID as a column. Okay, and it will create it, right? So instead of that, what I'll do is I'll write at the rate of column. I want to if let's say you want to define it, column. Okay, column. What column we will be giving? Name equals to, let's say I'll give my column name as address ID. Okay, this is clear. Now let's say I want this to be the unique primary key of it. So what I'll give is at the rate of ID. Okay, then this will be a primary key. Okay, so now here one more thing, I want it to be auto generated. So just put generated value. Okay, so it will create it will automatically generate its value. Now this time, let's say another variable private string address, let's say line 1. Okay, this is the first line address. Okay, so let's define its column name. Okay, so now let's define the column. Column name is name equals to address underscore line 1. Okay, so let's take this and make it line 2. Okay, now address line 2. Next, let's say this is, we want to make it city, and this is, let's say city. This is also fine. Next is, let's say state, and here state. Next, let's say This is country, this is country. Okay, next is chip. Okay, this is chip and this is long. Okay, so next is, let's say it is boolean is active, is active. Okay, so we have got these columns. Now if I'll save it, okay, so let's see what has happened. Restarted. Let's go back to this database and refresh. Is entity. If we will not put entity, it will not be able to connect, right? Yes. Okay, so let's see entity, right? So as we saw, there was no table. So now we'll see table will be there. Let's see it. Okay, after entity we'll see it. Later we'll add this. So let's see. Refresh this. Okay, you can see that this query is being hit already. Okay, create table address underscore table. Let's see, look for this table. Just refresh the database. Okay, so now you can see this table is here. All the columns which you have given are here, right? Okay, so now we saw this, right? So these are the tables, these are the columns which are created. Now we want to create the getter status. To do that easily and avoid the boilerplate, what we can do is we can put at the rate of data. Okay, the at the rate of data will create it. It is a Lombok annotation. Next is at the rate of all argument constructors to help you. Okay, then at the rate of no argument default constructor, no argument constructor. Okay, so that's all. Your address module, right? Sorry, model is done. Okay, so now we'll create repository. Okay, so let's go and create a repository here. New interface. Let's say give a simple name as address. How we've given the same name, a similar name we can give. We've given address.java, right? Similarly, we can give address repository. Okay, simple, finish. Now the interface is created. Let's bring the interface here. Inherited. So extends J. So we'll extend. So let's extend the JPA repository. Okay, so if we'll go inside, okay, so now before that, so what is the JPA repository? It's the first value or the model which you are going to utilize it here. The same model name will give address, and what is the ID? Data type of ID integer. Okay, the ID data type of ID is integer, right? This is the integer, right? So that's why we are giving here. Okay, clear? So now we got the predefined functions. Let's see what all predefined functions are there. You can go here and see. You can go here and see what all functions are there. See, find all these default functions are available. We'll be utilizing them. Okay. So your second part is done. Your repository is done. Okay. Next is we'll be creating our services. So let's create class again, one class again here, and we'll keep the name of address service. Okay, so let's create it. Okay, so now address service is created. What we'll do is we'll be okay. So before we go into that, let's see here. We've given all entity. Yes. So now here we can come here and we can start creating our functions. Okay, so the first function that we need to utilize is in CRUD is create. Okay, create means we need to save our address, right? We need to save some addresses. So for that reason, what we will be doing is let's create a private value from private variable for the repository, right? So what is our address in the repository name? Address repository. Okay, then let's say repo. Okay, let's get this, and then here we'll be using the dependency injection. What is it? Auto-wired. Okay, and we need to define this and tell that string that this is the service. Okay, so now we are ready. Now the function name, let's create public. Okay, we will be saving the records. So once you will save a single record, what you will do is you will give the record back to it, right? So let's put it, which kind of a model we'll be using? Same address, then save. Okay, simple. Okay, so we'll be returning this type of record, right? So let's pull it. Yes, we've imported. Now we'll be using address add. Okay, so our return type would be, right, we'll be returning the same address type. So return, what will be returning? So now here we'll be using a function, repository function, which we had shown here, shown in the address repository, right? Which we have extended the address JPA repository to the address repository. So we'll be using the repository function, which is predefined, which is defined by JPA itself, right? So those functions will be using it. So what function I will be using? So we'll see that repo dot save. Okay, so repo dot save, and here we will be passing the models properties. Okay, so now this will be saved. So this function will be allowing us to create records or insert our records. This is clear. Okay, now this for in CRUD C for create is done, right? Next is read, right? Let's read properties. Simply R for read records. So for reading the whole data, let's say you are reading whole set of data, right? All the records. So what you can do is public. It is very simple. Public address, but here the address would not be single address, right? All the addresses. So it will be list, okay, of type address. Okay. Then read all, let's say. So read all doesn't need anything because you are reading anyways everything. Let me just import it from Java util, and then here what I'll be returning, return again list. So what would be the function? Repo dot read, sorry, find all. Okay, so find all will be giving us the whole set of record. Now let's say you want the individual record. So public individual record doesn't need a list, so address read by or read off or anything you want to write here, it is up to you. I can write read by ID. Okay. So similarly, we are using read by ID as ID is already annotated thing, so it is very easy. Return repo dot find by ID. Okay. So, but how do you know the ID? So what you need to pose is integer ID. So that value you need to pass here. Okay. Now there is one issue here. What is it? ID. Maybe there is no value to return, right? So for that reason, this particular address would be optional. That means sometimes it may be null. So let's change it. So you can see it is optional, so that it may be a null value. Okay. So this is again this with the by the ID. Let's say you want to read by the zip number. Okay. So in that case, what we will do? Same thing. Let me copy. But here read by, I'll just write zip. Okay. Then here as zip is a long value, right? Long zip. Okay. Now this zip I'll take and put it here, and this function name. Okay. So now here is the thing. Okay. Now the function name, what I need to do is I need to write find by zip. Okay. Now this find by zip, there is no function like this in the repository. So what I need to do is I need to go to this add model and see what is it. Zip is this, right? So this is a column name, right? So I need to go here and create a repository, create a function in the repository find by zip. Okay. So as I have created, so this zip, this is the column name, find by is their prefix and zip is the column name. So you need to write it here and the first letter will be capital. Okay. So this way you need to write it. Once you've written this way, then just come and save it. Okay. Save this. Now this is clear. Okay. A similar way you can put city and whatever you want to read, so it will become read find by city. Whatever, however your column name is, similarly you can put. Next is so create read now update, right? So we need to create an update. So let's create one update. So public, I'll just give a comment U for update. Okay. So update records. Update records. Okay. So public. Okay. So now after updating, it will again send back the new record, right? So that means it will give back the address, right? Address of, let's say update is the function name, and here I will be taking the address add. So this is an existing address. So I need to find out what the existing address is, and I need to change it, right? And that will be updated. So, okay. So let's do that. So now we need to find the address. So how would you do that? The only thing that is not going to change during the update is what? The ID, address ID. So we need to find that first. So how do you do that? Let's do this way. First we'll get the whole address, existing address equals to report dot find by ID. Okay, and inside this I'll be putting the new one which is changed one. Okay, I'll put the changed one dot get ID. Okay, so what is it? This guy. Okay, get ID. Okay, so this is coming from the Lombok here. Here we don't have that function, right? But Lombok has created this. Using this one, these variables, Lombok has created the getters and setters. So basically, add dot get add ID. So this is the column name, right? It is saying it is returning this value. So repo dot find by this. Okay. Now it can be null. Clear? So what we can do is we can just write or else null, so that it can be null as well. Okay, so now here, if existing address is not equals to null, then I'll be proceeding, right? Or we'll be sending the null back. Okay, so let's see. So here, what we'll do, we will get the data, right? Okay, so which data we'll be getting here? The data from the okay. So existing ADD is the one which is there already. So that value dot set line 1. Okay. So here what we will put it, add dot line 1. Okay. Similarly, all the values will be putting here. Okay, let me change it. Dot set line 2. Again same add dot get line 2. So basically this inner is one which is passed here, the new address, and this one is existing one. So we are setting the existing one with the new one. Okay, replacing it basically. So next is set dot set city dot set country, or first we'll do state, then we can do set country, then we'll do set zip, right? Address dot get zip. Okay, now here address dot get country. Now here address dot get state. Okay, so here address dot get city. Okay, now all the addresses are, all the things are updated. Okay, once this is done, what we'll do is we'll save the new record, right? So how would you save the new record? Same how we had saved it earlier, similar way. So dot save the new address, which is, sorry, this old address which is changed. Okay, so this is how we should do. Now as we have already changed it, what we can do it, we can return this one to the, okay, so we have returned it here. Now if there is some issue, what we will do, return null. Okay, now this is updated. Okay, next is CRUD's D operation, right? Delete records. Public delete, we can give a string delete. Okay, delete. So delete would be done according to ID. So integer ID. Okay. So now here, what we can do is, if the repo dot delete, we can do with the ID, right? Delete by ID. Okay. So now, if it is done, then what we can do? Return deleted successfully. Okay, so if you want to put just like if the record is existing or not, you can put easily here this similar way, or you can put it here like if the record is there. So what you can do is, let's take it and put it here. Okay, so this, let's say your ID, you're searching with the ID, and if it is there, then only delete. Equals to null. If not equals to null, then only record, else return no records found. We can catch it easily and put it into the controller, and you can keep a failure, right? So these are the four. This is now the survey design is finished. Next is we will be putting the controller and call these functions. Don't worry, I'll be putting it in my GitHub repo, so you can fetch it and easily practice on it. So that's all with the services. Let's now create controllers. Okay, so what we'll do is new class, then here we'll be putting same address controller. Okay, let's finish it. Now the controller class is created. Okay, so here in the controller, so to identify a controller, what is the annotation we are going to use is @ controller. Okay, so let's rest controller. Let's put it at rest controller. Okay, so now we need to connect service to the controller, right? So let's create a variable for service, private, and what is the service name? Address service. Variable name, let's say serve. Okay, so now we need to auto-wire it, right? Auto-wire it. Okay, so we have got the service now. Okay, so now as we've got the service, so let's create first the read operation, right? For that we need to create a controller. That's a get operation. So let's say this is reading, right? Let's say get operation. So let's create a function public. We need to return the value, right? We need to return the value of which type? Of address type. So address. Okay. Next, let's say get all addresses, or simply addresses is also fine. Addresses, right? So here, what will be return type? Address, right? So return serve dot we are reading, right? So get, sorry, we have what function we have created, read all, right? This is the function. So let's import this model. So this is now created, right? So this read all is basically a type of list. So as we are reading all the addresses, right? So list this. Okay. So now list we need to import anyways. Okay. So this is fine. So this is simple, right? So next thing is by ID, right? So let's see. Just I just copy paste the same thing here. Address. Okay. So address by ID means what? By ID means we would be getting one single address, so the return type is this. Okay. So now service dot read by ID, right? So here we will be passing one value, that is ID. So how do you do that? So let's do it for both of them. At the rate of get, this is get, so get mapping. Okay, and here we'll be giving the path, right? So path is addresses. You can give same or different, doesn't matter. Same get mapping we would be doing here. Now we need to read a variable from this, right? From the get URL. Sorry. Okay. So now we need to give read one variable. Right? What we'll do is we'll put path variable. Okay. Path variable, and here we will give the value as ID. Okay. So this is the path variable, and we are reading the value of integer ID. This ID will be passing further, right? So here I need to give curly brace variable name. Okay, so now this is saying what it is returning, optional, right? So what we can do here, as this is returning optional, that means it may or may not read some value, right? When it returns some value. So for that reason, what we can do is we can change the return type to optional. Pretty simple. There's no issue in it. So optional address. Okay. So this is what, that one. So next read operation is get by zip, right? So here what we can do is here address. Okay, here address of, let's say, of zip. Okay, and here I'll give zip, right? So this number we'll be putting here zip, here long, then we'll be putting zip, right? That's all. Read by zip. Okay, so all the read operations are done. Okay, so now let's go to the postman and create a get operation, right? So here, let's say I'll just create a folder, new folder. In this new folder, I'll just rename it address. Okay, so here inside this, I'll create a new request. Let's say this is read all. Okay, as I'm running in localhost 9191 addresses. Right, this is the one, it is a get operation. The localhost 991, this one, this is the port, this is localhost, this is here get path. Let's see, there is no result, right? So we have not inserted anything, but our API is working fine. So let's go ahead and create a post to insert data. Okay, insert data post. Okay, now at post mapping. Okay, let me just create a path. add or insert address. Okay, so now public address insert here. Okay, here what we'll do is return service dot save, right? And we'll be expecting data, but that would be our request body, right? So to get data for our request body, what we will be writing is at the rate of request body, then what is the type? Again, address of edit. Okay, so this address will be passing to this save. Okay, so our insert is done. So let's go and check this insert address. This is a post request. Let's add request insert. Let's take the path from here. Okay, and what path we are taking? Insert address, creating this, convert to post. Request body is of type of raw and JSON, right? So let's insert word address, right? So what we'll do is here first will be our ID will be auto generated. So let's go to this and get the first one, add line 1. So let's say add line 1 address. I'm just giving any line, or we can give flat 89 some address. Okay, next is add line 2. Let's say near XYZ. Next, city, let's say Bangalore. Next is state. Okay, let's say it is Karnataka. Let's country, it is India. Then zip it is, let's say something, then is active, let's say true. Okay, so this is our request body. Now let's send this. Okay, so you can see added this to the address table. Added address ID is 6. So let's go and see the record. So in the record, if I will come and see here in the SQL, let's go to the SQL and select star from address table. Okay, so let's run it. Execute. So you can see address ID is 6. Maybe the sequence, Hibernate sequence is older sequence, so it got 5 already utilized the 5 IDs, so that's why it is 6. So that is fine. Then you can see address line 2, address line 1, city, India is active, it has been saved. Okay, so you can see this, right? So now if I go back to the read all and run it again, you can see the data is here, right? Right, whatever data you are storing, it is getting stored, getting inserted, and it is retrieving the data, right? So both the things are done. Now let's go for read and let's go for update, right? So let's say we'll go for update ts. Okay, so now let's update data, that is put. Okay, so let's see. Okay, now similarly post mapping will put mapping. Okay, let's see put mapping here, update address, and here request body update. Okay, here we'll change it to dot update. Okay, date. Let's see, this update address will be put, right? So let's go to this one and add one more, add request, change it to put, change it to update. Okay, let's go here, bring this one, put it here, and change it to update. What is the path we had written? Update address. We'll go and write this update address. Okay, and it will need a JSON similarly. So let's bring it from here. Okay. Update. Let's say flat 89. I'll do 908. Okay. Then we'll change it to. Okay. So this is complete. This one I will change it to JSON. Okay. So now let's hit this. Okay, so let's see, this is changed. You can see, go and read all and hit it again. You can see this is 908 has been changed, right? So if we have successfully designed the update address. Next is delete data using delete HTTP method. Okay, so here we can put it delete mapping, then here delete address. Okay, class values are compulsory, but it's good to have. Okay, so now let's say this public. Okay, so here it is a string, right? String delete at delete will need an ID. This will be delete would have a path variable, right? We will tell that okay, this is the delete, so we can put a path variable to the delete, right? So let's see that delete, then we will give the ID here. Here it will be integer ID, and this would be inside path variable. So path variable int ID, then here. Okay, so here we can change this to this particular response to the response entity, right? Let's put response. We need a JSON, let's say. So response entity of type, let's say, I'll take a type of hash map. Okay, so hash map is here of type of string. Okay, hash map is of type of string, comma string, right? Now I'm going to return this hash map. So before I return, I need to impact create it, right? Hash map of type of string, comma string. Let's say map equals to new hash map. Okay, let's see. This is spelling mistake. Okay, so now this map. Okay, so now let's delete it. So there are two things. Either you will delete it. Okay, if this is successful, then only you should return a success message, right? So if delete, so let's call the function before that string message equals to service dot delete, right? And id we have got it, so I can give the id. So now what this delete method contains, deleted successfully, right? So successfully, let's say we're telling successfully this record, or we can take this record and see if message contains message dot contains. You can give anything, I'm just taking one of these things. Okay, if this, then here map dot put, okay, message. Okay, so here let's say this is a key and this is the value. Clear? So now else same way you can put, the only difference will be status. So this will return a status of type new. We are putting response entity, right? So response entity value I'll take, and here in the response entity I'll be putting the hash map, right? So hash map, yeah, so hash map, then here is a type of string, comma string. Here what I will give is hash map of type string, and this is a response entity. So here we need to give the first, we need to give a message. So the map I'll put the map value. Okay, then next is http status, right? Dot, this is successful, so we'll be putting okay. Okay, this is successful or okay. If it is not, message will be returning, but here we'll be putting, let's say, bad request, one of the failure messages, right? So okay, so that's all done. So let's delete the address. So what is the path we have given? Delete addresses. I can make it delete addresses. So update, then add request, delete. So let's take this here, then remove this, put it to delete. Okay, then id, right? So So we need ID. So what is the ID number of this one? Go and check that ID is 6. So here let's change this to delete. Okay, ID is 6. Delete. Okay, deleted successfully. Now if I'll do again, it should give no records found. Okay, so that's all for all these 4 operations: reading, creating, reading, and updating and deleting. Okay, now what we'll do next is we'll create a jar and deploy this to EC2 and see in the real server action. Okay, now we'll build the application, right? So let's go and build the application. So to do that, I'll click on this project folder, then Ctrl Alt T to create the start the terminal, right? Then here I'll run maven clean install. Not able to see it, I'll just expand this. Okay, enter. It will take some time. Okay, our build is successful. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's go to the target folder and directly go here, properties, go to this. Then inside this, I will have a target folder, and this is the jar file, right? So now I'll come here to my S3. Okay, and what I'll do is click on this upload. Okay, here I need to drag and drop it right from my folder, from my target folder, right? This is my target folder. From here I'll drag and drop it. Okay, now I have dropped it. So let's select it and upload. Now it is uploading. It will take 1-2 seconds, 4 seconds, around 4-5 seconds. Okay, so once this is updated, what I need to do is I need to download this particular jar file to EC2 server, right? To do that, what I'll do is I'll go and connect to the EC2 instance. Let me go and start my Putty, my existing instance, and connect. Okay, successfully connected. My list. Okay, I have these files. I'll delete this, right? So let me do this. Then remove this. Okay, yes, I want to remove it. Okay, that's gone, completely removed, right? So now what I'll do is sudo, we need to download it, right? So that is sudo wget, and what is the path of that? Let's go and see path of this one. So here is the path. I'll copy this path over here, paste it. Okay, so let's get it. We got the jar file. Now if we'll put an L, you will see the jar file, right? Okay, so now here what I'll write is sudo java -jar. You want to run non-background, add no hop. Okay, so here this path, right? So let's put it this. Okay, let's run it. Let's start this Spring Boot application here. Okay, now let's go to the EC2. So it is started now. Start complete. Okay, so everything is started. It is started in 9191. So let's go to the EC2. Here, make sure that in security you should be having a 9191 port, right? So let me just go to the refresh the EC2. Okay, and instance running. Okay, just that, make sure that in the security tab you have this input bound. If you don't have, create here. Okay, you have in my earlier video, it is shown clearly. You can go and create here, right? So now here what I'll do is I just need to go to the details tab and get the path, right? Then I'll go back to postman. Let's go to the read all. Instead of this one localhost, I'll put the same path, right? Then send. Now it is empty because we don't have it. Let's insert. What I'll do is I'll put it here, okay, and I will insert this record again. Let's see, it is inserted in 7th with 7th ID. Now let's go to read all. Is there? So see, this is the DNS from where it from where we have hosted our API. Okay, so that's all. It has been hosted in EC2. Okay, so every API which you have export now, you can go and play around it. We can use all the HTTP methods, do it, and we can utilize in our application scenario. Okay, that's all, guys. Thank you.